Machiavelli was an Italian diplomat, politician, and a philosopher of the Renaissance period. He has often been called the father of modern political science. Earlier today, we've interviewed an author and also a researcher on Machiavelli. But before we get to the end of our show, I'd like to ask all our viewers to subscribe to our channel down below for different interviews on different subjects, because this is Zain Khan and we're live. Welcome to Zain Khan Live, where everything is discussed. Today, the guest of our show is Mohammed Abbasi, an author and also a researcher on the subject. Welcome to our show, Mohammed Abbasi. This is Zain Khan. Welcome to Zain Khan Live.
It's a pleasure to be with you again, Zain.
Mohammed Abbasi, let's get to the first question. What is Machiavelli actually known for?
Well, Niccolò Machiavelli is best known for writing The Prince, which is a handbook for ambitious politicians, who in turn inspired the term Machiavellianism and made its author as the father of particular theory. Machiavelli was born in the same year as Guru Nanak, for example, the founder of Sikhism in 1469. He existed around the same period as Henry VIII. He became the King of England. Suleiman the Magnificent was the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. Emperor Babur was the head of the Mughal dynasty in the subcontinent. At around that time, there were many pressures on Europe, because it was around the Renaissance period, awakening period in Europe. The Muslims at that time were the rulers of much of the Mediterranean and South Asia, West Asia. The Europeans were wanting to succeed, to better themselves, to rule.
Why is Machiavelli known as a political genius?
Sure. Machiavelli and Machiavellianism, which is now a word used in a very negative way to point fingers at those politicians who are the sort that Machiavelli described in The Prince. Machiavelli basically described immoral behaviors, dishonesty, killing of innocents as being normal and effective in politics. Many people who haven't studied The Prince say that he encouraged such behaviors as giving evil recommendations to tyrants to help them gain and maintain their power. Actually, what Machiavelli did, how and what techniques were used by people to gain and hold on to that power. If anything, he exposed the power-hungry and the greedy. One of his quotes, let me give you one of his quotes. It says, "It is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles." What Machiavelli meant, he meant that whatever your title, whatever society gives you, whether you're a king, a prince, a priest, a Maulana, a rabbi, a guru, whatever, you are nothing if you don't be a leader in action, not just. Machiavelli himself was anti-clerical, meaning he was against the Christian Maulvis at the time. He didn't really regard them as scholars of Christianity. Many people around that time, Christians, considered him anti-Christian. He was not anti-Christian. What he was saying is that he was despising the impracticality and the weakness of the political system within his country, and which made the politicians of Italy at that time, and also in a lot of areas in Europe, use religion as a fig leaf to gain power. Machiavelli himself was a Christian, a believer in his own way. He had just a bit more of a deeper understanding of what was going on around him in the name of his religion. He wasn't willing to get manipulated by the secular politicians, who he called the princes. the politicians or the clerics, who he regarded just as politicians in pious clothing.
How are the ideas of The Prince, the book that Machiavelli wrote, used today?
His ideas, his tactics or techniques are not really techniques, they're actually principles. They were new at that time and are still considered controversial today because they have a very harsh and direct truth about them. He was, in a modern term, what you would call a realpolitik. He was about reality. He recognized that successful leadership consists of actions rather than inherent virtues. For example, I'm the king, I can do whatever, or I'm a Christian, I can do, I'm supposed to be like this. But, guess what? You're not acting like that. You're not really a leader unless you actually show that in your own actions, in your own behavior, in your own words. You're actually doing stuff for people. Himself, not immoral, but that doesn't mean to say that he was moral or evil. He was simply amoral. He was about, moderation between morality and immorality. People who call this totalitarianism, for example. They would say that he wanted dictatorship. But to Machiavelli, being immoral or being too moral when you are a leader, it actually leads to your own destruction because you are acting from a place of emotion where you have power over the people. You have to use that in a way that is more just, more wiser. You have to be wise to do that. He believed that people, for example, were sheep, and you had to inspire these sheep to go this way or that way. And if you did not inspire those sheep, they would be everywhere. And this is where, for example, the clerics at that time in the different states of Italy had their own little power fiefdoms. They all were, they wanted to move their groups this way and that. So it was basically about control. It was about getting money out of these sheep under control. Machiavelli was about wanting to free them, wanting to bring Italy together or help a prince, not the princes. We need to understand that because if we're in a position of power, if a person is in a position of power, he or she will attract leeches who may want to look good within, with that person. They might want to look powerful. They want to do this or they want to do that. They're not actually there to help the leader or to help the cause. So the leader has to be bold. He has to not be timid. He has to keep such people away. So one of the things he warned against is ambitious people. He said that there will be ambitious people who will try to unseat you. Again, the thing is about unseat you, not because they want to do good for the country, but because simply they want to be leaders. Machiavelli's advice is uncomfortable for people outside of politics because of the ambition and distrust he's speaking about. And we as people who are not Machiavellian politicians, we can see all around us, from politics to religion, from science to education or business, these amoral techniques that are used. So the basic principle of Machiavelli was to be realistic, not idealistic. You let the sheep be idealistic, you be realistic. We need to be logical humans, not emotional animals. So that's, I think that's that. But there's so much more, so much knowledge you can take away from the Prince.
Mohammed Abbasi, let's get to the last question. What advice can you give on how we can use the Prince today?
One of the things is it is said that people judge someone by observing the people he or she is being surrounded by. The leader is known as wise as if he has faithful and capable people around him, not yes men or sycophants, not people who are who are just looking to raise their own status in society. Machiavelli said, his quote is, the first method of estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has surrounding him. What we need to understand as people, as common people, is that we are all leaders to an extent. Whether it is within our families, at work, amongst friends, at school, wherever, we need to understand that everyone, every single individual on this planet, it doesn't matter what they say, who they are ambitious in their own way about something. And in their own hearts, they have their own interests at heart. So you need to surround yourself by people you learn from and who are on the same mission as you. Understanding the art or the prince, what we're talking about now, for example, I mean, I also studied the art of war. It's about using these techniques, these principles, to push yourself forward and your group, not just about being concerned about yourself. Now, Machiavelli may teach leadership from an individual point of view, but he's actually talking about a group situation. He says, for example, where the willingness is great, the difficulties cannot be great. Again, I'll say that where the willingness is great, the difficulties cannot be great. A nation's best interest, it doesn't matter what nation it is, its best asset is its people. Business's best asset are its workers. An army's best interest and best assets are its soldiers. The nation has leaders, the business has managers, the army has generals. There must be a unity of purpose and focus within a nation, within a people, to and make a newer, stronger country, if there is that willingness, if there is that purpose within. We may be all great as individuals in one way or another. We all have different abilities, different understandings of how things work. But together we can be much greater. And with a focused leadership, with a leadership that's actually has a goal in mind, I think, and surrounding by strong, good, educated people, experienced people, I think a nation can be unstoppable. So I would say, where the willingness is great, the difficulties cannot be great.
Thank you so much, Mohammed Abbasi, for being on Zain Khan Live. It was a pleasure having you.
My pleasure.
This was Mohammed Abbasi, a writer and also a researcher on the subject. We were discussing Machiavelli and some of his works. But before we get to the end of our show, I'd like to ask all our viewers to subscribe to our channel down below for different interviews on various topics, because this is Zain Khan and we're live.